Greetings, everyone. I want to welcome you back to Module 2, Lesson 1. Before we begin, I'd like to review some concepts and go over your homework before we begin. You learned in your last module that your personality creates your personal reality, and we create based on lack or separation. We realize that we don't have something, and when we realize we don't have it and we want it, the brain naturally begins to imagine having it. And in three-dimensional reality, we have to do a lot of things in order to create an experience. So we learned that there are several definitions of abundance, and that I asked you to come up with your own personal definition, that personal reality of abundance. It's so important for you to get very clear with your intention and exactly what that is for you. Now, because there's several different definitions, I asked you to broaden your understanding to go beyond just abundance when it comes to wealth and finances. There can be an abundance of energy, an abundance of vitality, an abundance of love in an intimate relationship, an abundance of friends and family. You can have an abundance of freedom, an abundance of time. You can have synchronicities, opportunities, an abundance of material things that you would love to collect, as well as virtues. So I hope by now that you've taken the time and wrote down the long version of what your definition of abundance is. Once you have that personal definition of abundance, the next thing I asked you to do was to assign a symbol to it. Now, that symbol represents exactly what your definition of abundance is. I asked you then to create that symbol. I hope you have it by now. You can put it on the desktop of your computer. You can put it on your phone. You can put it in a frame next to your bed on your nightstand. You can tape it on your mirror in your bathroom, just to cue your environment to remind you of where you're going. The concept, as you'll learn, is if you keep your conscious mind on what you want, your subconscious mind will take you there. So if your personality creates your personal reality, you want to create the personal reality of abundance, then we have to change in some way. We have to overcome the personality that's based in lack. I asked you then to write down 2 thoughts or beliefs, 2 behaviors or actions, 2 emotions that are connected to the personality of lack, and become so conscious of those unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that you wouldn't default to that old personality and return back to that same state of being. So then once you remind yourself of who you no longer want to be, it's important then to understand you have to remind yourself of who you do want to be. What thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? And if a belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again, if you keep remembering to think this way, you begin to install the neurological hardware in your brain. Keep doing it over and over again, and the hardware becomes a software program, and now it's the new thought. It's the new voice in your head. If you decide on how you're going to act or how you're going to behave in your new life, and you rehearse in your mind in different circumstances, the act of closing your eyes and rehearsing your behaviors begins to do the exact same thing. The brain does not know the difference between the real-life experience and what you're imagining. And in a sense, the brain goes from a record of the past to a map to the future. You begin to prime your brain for the act. As you install the neurological hardware, if you keep reviewing it and keep repeating it, the hardware becomes a software program, and you begin to naturally behave that way. The last step is to teach your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like before it actually happens. And if you keep thinking in different ways, if you keep acting in different ways, and you keep feeling in different ways, you begin to create a new personality, and that new personality begins to connect to a new personal reality. We cannot create a new personal reality as the same personality. We literally have to become somebody else. So then, in the final part of Module 1, I asked you also to create that symbol and combine that symbol with those elevated emotions so you have the energy to execute in your life. The emotions of excitement, inspiration, optimism, enthusiasm, motivation. We talked about the highest form of motivation and the lowest form of motivation. And mission motivation or purpose motivation is the reason we can get up, because it's a vision that's bigger than us. Once we have that mission, and I asked you to write it in its long form, begin to take that mission and give it an abbreviated version and to put it right in that arrow. Once you have that abbreviated version of your mission, I asked you to come up with 3 goals. Each goal is designed for you to get your behaviors to match your intentions, your actions equal to your thoughts, and your mind and body working together. If you do it over and over again, it makes sense then you're going to start to arrive at that first goal and achieve it. Once you have your goals in place, the next important thing is every morning is to go over your to-do list. Set your intention for the day before you start your day. Go over the new choices you're going to make and the new behaviors or the things you're going to do to arrive at that goal. And your day is about accomplishing everything on those lists. Now, as you learned in three-dimensional reality, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of time to do a lot of things to arrive at that end. But it's important for us to remember, keep one foot in three-dimensional reality and one foot in that fifth-dimensional reality. And today is about creating from the fifth-dimensional reality. There is an invisible field of energy that exists beyond your senses, beyond this material world, beyond everything in three-dimensional reality, and it's energy and its frequency. We have to develop the knowledge, the theory, the philosophy, and it has to make sense to you so it becomes effective when it comes to the application. I want to remind you that we have all kinds of people that are taking this course. We have first-timers that this information will be new to. We have experienced people that have been to my week-long events, my advanced events, have been to several events, and I want to bring everybody along together. So I'm going to take my time in this particular lesson, and I'm going to review what it means to create from space-time and the principles of space-time. Once I have that formulated, we're going to talk about that alternate reality, that quantum field, that invisible field of energy and information that exists beyond everything material and physical. The laws are different in that realm. The quantum field, of course, in time-space. You learn that space-time, there is an infinite amount of space. In time-space, there's an infinite amount of time. And if time was eternal, if you had all the time in the world to do anything, there's an infinite number of possibilities of things that you can create. The rules change when you enter that field, and the only way that we can create from the field instead of from matter, to shorten the distance between the thought of what you want and the experience of having it, is creating with a coherent brain and a coherent heart. So the introduction to five-dimensional reality, or creating from that fifth dimension, is going to take us some time to tease out. But first, I want to talk about that concept called space-time.